This is my Calathea Zebrina. If you have a Calathea Zebrina or if you're thinking about getting one, you should keep watching because this video is going to help you out. For those of you that are not already aware, Calatheas have a little bit of a reputation for being dramatic and a little fussy. They are one of my favorite plants, but they do have some issues. So in this video, I'm going to talk about some common issues that I think you're going to run into with Calathea Zebrina. They are issues that I had a difficult time figuring out at first, but once you get them down and once you know what's happening with your plant, the rest of it is super easy. We are going to go through 4 different issues that might happen to your Zebrina and talk about some different ways to fix them so your plant can thrive and be happy and be totally gorgeous. The first issue we're going to tackle is curling leaves. This can be happening for a couple of reasons. Number 1, your plant might be getting too much light. Number 2, it might just be thirsty. For me personally, I used to keep my plant in medium light and I noticed that it just didn't seem that happy. When these plants get too much light, you're going to see their leaves start to curl. That is their way of protecting themselves from taking in too much sun. If you have them in direct light, definitely move them away, move them out of the way. They really prefer indirect medium to medium low light. With the Zebrina specifically, I found that it really prefers medium to low light. The second reason that your leaves may be curling is because it's thirsty. Now, for the Zebrina specifically, this is what I see most often. If my leaves are curling, I know immediately that it's not too much light, it's definitely because it's thirsty. And honestly, if you let it go to the point that the leaves are curling, I would give it a really good drench of water because that's too far for these plants. They really prefer to have their soil moist at all times, moist but well draining. The second issue that you might be having is drooping leaves. And this is going to happen to your plant for a couple of reasons. The first thing I would investigate before dealing with anything else is check your temperature. These plants are not accustomed to being cold. They're tropical plants. They're really not meant to be cold and they really don't enjoy it. I've noticed that some of my Calatheas have an easier time with slightly cooler temperatures. Out of all of my Calatheas, the Calathea Zebrina is the most sensitive to temperature. If there is a cold shot of air from my ceiling fan or my air conditioning, anything, even if it's just for a moment, my plant does not like it and generally reacts pretty quickly. So that is really the first thing that you want to look out for. Another reason that you might be seeing drooping leaves is because your plant is putting all of its energy into producing new leaves. So my Zebrina puts out leaves pretty regularly. I would say I have at least 1 to 3 leaves every couple of weeks or so. So it is constantly putting out leaves right now. When this happens, it is directing all of its energy to that new growth, and what's going to happen are those lower leaves are going to start to die. When these leaves start to droop and they're not making normal praying movements, generally I know that this leaf is starting to fade away, and it's usually around the same time as I see new growth coming up. This isn't a big deal, it's just the way that the plant works. Once it starts to yellow, I would go ahead and cut it off because that way your plant can put that energy all towards the new growth. This is going to happen to your Calathea. Just take a deep breath and get over it. This is what happens to these plants. We are not in a rainforest. These are rainforest plants. They really require high humidity, rainwater, things that you may not be able to give them in adequate doses on a regular basis. However, there are some ways that you can reduce the brown edges and make your plant overall a little bit happier. You can help avoid brown edges and especially crispy edges if you use distilled water. These plants really prefer to have the purest water possible. If you can use rainwater, that's great. If you can use distilled water, that's fine. If you use filtered water, your results might be hit or miss, but definitely do not use tap water. These plants are so sensitive to salts and minerals. Just know that going in that, okay, you have a Calathea, it's going to be gorgeous, but it might not be perfect. It happens. Okay, lastly, I want to talk about wilting stems Usually you'll see this in conjunction with curling leaves. So the leaves will be curled, the stems will be wilted and just kind of splayed out everywhere. It's not pretty and it's a little bit scary to see, and it can happen pretty quickly. When your plant doesn't have enough oxygen coming to its roots, that is going to increase your chances of getting root rot and ultimately killing your plant. So if you see your stems wilting, your leaves curling at the same time, go ahead, check your plant out, check the roots out. One really common reason behind this is improper soil. So that's going to mean soil that is too dense and it's not draining well, or it's just so dense that it's staying wet, and so the roots are staying wet. These plants do enjoy being moist, but they don't like to sit in water. So when they do sit in water or when they don't drain correctly, you're going to get major issues. Personally, if I saw this happening to one of my plants, I would go ahead, pop it out, look at the roots, look at the soil. If it's still wet or it just really looks like it's very compacted, I would go ahead and repot it. Okay, that is it. If this was helpful to you, please like and subscribe. I will have new content out shortly. Thank you so much for watching. See you next time.